Word. I feel like I can screw something up today because we're talking about improv in business. Oh, business, like life, can hand you a lot of smacks upside the head. And improv is all about embracing what is instead of resisting it, going with it, leaning into the difference. That's our topic for today. Yes, and it's interesting. Yesterday, we posted a little clip about how life smacks you upside the head sometimes with a opening tease about Mike Tyson. Today, we're talking with Erin Diehl, who I'll get into in just a second, who brings improv and many other cool things to business. Hey, everybody, it's Bill Gallagher, your show host and host of this Scaling Up Business podcast, scaling coach, I don't know, some other things. There's a logo if you're watching on video. So we bring our show to you every week, 450 plus episodes now, and everything to do with getting your company growing, dialing in your people strategy, execution, cash, and leveling up your leadership along the way. All those shows and more at scalingcoach.com or wherever you found this. All right, so you can see here, if you're watching a video, grooving alongside to my favorite theme music here. Erin is founder and CEO of a company called Improve It, and they bring improv and more to companies to help level stuff up. She's going to tell us some stories about that, and we'll have some fun today. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Oh my God, Bill, it is a pleasure to be here. I am feeling this vibe. Yes.
You know, I really worry about doing a show with somebody with a background in improv. Things could go wrong. They could get flustered.
Oh, I'm so ready for it. That's what I'm here for. Fail, yeah, Bill. I'm here for that. You gotta fail to go forward. You know what I mean?
Fail forward.
Failfluencer. I'm a failfluencer. I don't know if you know
Fail
that, but
forward.
failfluencer. So it's not the influencer that you see on Instagram.
Failfluencer.
Mm-hmm. Failfluencer. So I don't promote links. It is. It's a new pronoun. I don't promote links to Amazon. I promote links to yourself, to allow yourself to fail forward and just celebrate failures. It's really honestly been the most freeing thing I've ever done in my life. And I will tell you, that is all driven from the improv stage. I have had many a flop and continuously will continue to have many flops. But I never really learned anything from the good shows. It's only from the bad.
Yeah, you know, we're going to get into your whole story to start off things here, but I definitely think there's something extraordinarily valuable about confronting failures, confronting moments of crisis, things like that. All the breakthroughs happen there. In fact, right, breakthrough implies a barrier, which, you know, if you love having breakthroughs, then it's interesting that none of us love running up against walls, but that really is what's required.
It's true. That's true. Yeah. No, it's for real. And I will tell you too, I mean, I'm going through my own sort of next evolution currently in life, but I've had many things that I have hit walls against. And then when you can actually break through those walls and get to the other side, you feel so freaking powerful and you trust yourself, which is really what leaning into failure and failfluencing is all about. And for me, all this was driven from the improv stage because I know, Bill, you've done some improv. So you got to know this rule.
I would say a lot of my life is improv.
Yeah. Everyone's is. We're all improvising. This is all made up.
Real improv, except accidentally, right? Improving with everything all the time. But I would like to. I have done a little bit of stand-up. So I did one set at a comedy club in New York, and then I've done a bunch of like little bits in conferences and things like that. So a couple of 3 to 5 minute things, and then one 17-minute. Yeah.
Well, and
tell
that
us
takes
your
guts.
background. How do you come to improv, comedy, that kind of thing? Tell us kind of the arc of how you got here.
Yeah. Well, it started at 3 years old in my
Yeah.
family's living room playing. If you ever remember the show on Nickelodeon, Double Dare, do you remember that? This is like back in the 80s. And it was a show that people would play and they would hit the buzzer really quick and you'd try to answer a question. And if you didn't answer it quick enough, you got slimed. So I was literally at 3 years old playing Double Dare in my family's living room. And then that just started my entire life being in community theater, show choir, Bill. I had jazz hands. And then yeah, see, it makes you want to cringe. I did a jazz hand. And then I got into sketch comedy and literally went to Clemson University, got a degree in communications, graduated, told my parents I was going to become a talk show host. This is the early 2000s. Moved to Chicago because I thought, well, where does a talk show host go to get their training wheels? It's Chicago where Oprah, yeah, lives. So I was like, I'm going to be Oprah, mom and dad. Thanks for the loans and the degree. I am now moving to become Oprah. And back then there weren't many online classes for television hosting. There was limited resources. So I said, where should I start? And I started doing improv. And then magically that transitioned into a career teaching people how to pull the tips and tricks from the stage and utilize them into their life day to day. And we teach professionals, it's in the corporate world, but I really believe a strong foundation of improv and a strong understanding just helps you be a better human. And it's really spilled over into every area of my life, but that's the Cliff Notes version. There is a lot more in there that I could tell you, but it has been a journey, an evolution. We've had this business 8 years, went through the pandemic being a completely in-person business, which was really interesting, and now have a complete virtual side and back to our complete in-person side as a hybrid company as well. So it's been a really interesting 3 years, let's say that.
It has been an interesting 3 years. My mic was muted there. Yeah, it's really like it's changed us in so many profound ways. It's so weird, and I think we're still kind of grappling with it. I mean, all the pivots that happened through and during the pandemic was really like a case study in life improv. Maybe not for the point of making us laugh, except in retrospect. But if you think about it, so there you are, you're pitching your company to an investor, and they ask something that just seems to really be unexpected or throw you, right? Moment for improv. You're making a big pitch, you're talking on the stage, and then somebody heckles you or whatever. Moment for improv. You like all of it. You're delivering a talk to a group of employees in your monthly all hands, and then somebody throws something that you were not expecting, did not want to. Moment for improv, right? Like it is truly all that and
Oh my
more.
god. Yes, Bill. Yes, you hit all of those things and more, and it's really trusting. This is what if I could boil it down, improv is postponing judgment of yourself first. So letting go of this mask, this hypothetical mask that we all wear to work, being okay with being vulnerable, trusting in yourself. And if you can do that, anyone watching you is going to follow suit. Anyone watching you is going to feel that. Think of, you did stand up. Think of a stand up comedian who's standing on stage and you know that they're bombing. The audience does not want to see you bomb. They want to see you succeed. They paid money. They got babysitters. They got some booze in this. They paid for the ticket. They want the show. And so what it is really in those moments, pulling yourself back together and realizing that you have all the answers. And if you can do that, your show's going to go forward. People are going to love it. It's going to be awesome. You're together going to create this energy and this bond, but it is not, let me say this on the same metaphor. Wow, going down a real metaphor rabbit hole. But through this, it's not standing up on stage and being the funniest person in the room. Great improv on stage and in life is actually listening and reacting to the last thing that someone said, processing that, and then saying exactly what you have to say in the moment, reacting to their comment. And then that's where the comedy actually lies, is in that truth, in that reaction. It's not a knock knock joke. It is a let me listen to what you say and respond. And those things are what get the biggest laughs on stage. And those things are what get the biggest responses from your team, from investors, from whoever it may be that you are giving a presentation or just having a conversation with. So it's really those moments of pure reaction and listening that make improv great.
It's interesting. So I've had a lot of different speaker, spokesperson, PR trainings,
Yeah.
over decades. And when I think about like corporate PR training, when I was an executive at Sprint years ago, they sent me to their internal corporate PR, and you go to a TV studio, and then they first did a thing where they just like blasted you with things and you failed. And then they taught you some techniques about being composed and then using whatever they asked to turn it into something. And I was fine at that, but like, so you have your 3 points or whatever that you want to reinforce. And then whatever question they give you, you just flip it, right? But that does have you sound like a horrible politician or a corporate sort of bland person who's always gonna, I mean, you are in effect improving, but with no play, with no freedom. It's just like, I'm gonna twist that into something I want to say and then talk about that. And you're not actually related. But it's useful. And then later I had training as a speaker, and in that it was more about like be able to get out with other people. And so deal with what's in there. And if you're in here, then you got to name it, lean into it, deal with it, and then get back out with people. And that's a little more playful. But then with comedy, right, there's like really coming unglued and setting aside, like I have to be a certain way. And I could like talk about just anything, almost, and go with that. And that there's a total amount of like freedom and play that's available. And if you could really get to that place, like you could actually have fun with people, and then you're both entertaining and communicating and interacting with what's real in the moment, right? Different.
You know what we call that? Edutainment, Bill.
Edutainment.
Edutainment. Yes. And let me tell you, sorry, I'm trying to cross my legs, but not mess up my computer
Okay,
screen. Here it is. Here she is. Okay. So let me explain exactly what, because I hear what you just said. And this is exactly why I use improv as a teaching tool. I think it's the most fantastic, magical teaching tool because it not only tells you and teaches you, it shows you experientially how to do whatever the lesson is. And so we teach on what I call power skills, right? So communication is something we teach, leadership is something we teach, but where we find that people have their, what I call, this sounds cheesy, aha, haha moments. So it's an aha moment while you're laughing. Okay. Make that one up. Trademark that, Bill. Trademark that, everyone.
Trademark it all.
Trademark it all. But it's really where you are so in the now. You're so present in what you're learning because you are laughing. You forgot, oh my God, I'm standing in this room. If you're doing an improv training, you forgot I'm standing in this room with my CEO, with several people in senior leadership. I am mid-level manager here. And it doesn't matter that we're all laughing and cutting up and having fun because we're doing it together. Judgment is postponed. I don't feel like I'm standing in front of the room and everyone's staring at me thinking, and I feel like I'm naked. I feel like we're all together on stage in our underwear and we're having the best time because truly it allows us to drop those preconceived notions and it allows us to just focus on play. Which if you think back to even myself at 3 years old, right? 3-year-old Erin in her living room. That's what I was doing. I was playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was my parents were like, what is she doing? But they loved it, right? Because I didn't care. I had no judgment. They weren't judging me. And that's what happens when improv can come in as a training tool for yourself. That is when you can just see yourself start to evolve. You can feel yourself become more confident, more present, a better communicator, a better listener. The list goes on. but I have never found a teaching tool to be as effective.
That room to play that 3-year-old Erin did, and we all do at some point, and then you watch it shut off and suppress and disconnect and self-evaluate as a parent is really hard to watch,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And then they go and they get really weird, and then they're trying to be expressive of something, but doing weird ass things all through their teens, and then at some point they maybe get freed up again. But I think then the sort of weird thing is to remember, yeah, you did that, right? Like
Oh,
I think
yeah.
about like the playful, joyful kid, and then but then okay, I was a playful, joyful kid, and then I went through a period of being suppressed and boring and not free. And what is it that would give you some freedom? How could you access that? And I think that's the value of doing the improv kind of work, right? Is to any experience of that, of like freeing yourself up a little bit to be ridiculous, right?
Oh
To
my
go to
God.
those places that you are don't want to go to.
Abso-freaking-lutely. And let me say this. So many thoughts that I have. Let me just start at the very beginning of what you said. First of all, I have a 3.5-year-old myself,
Mhm.
and he is s- shocking to no one, super verbal. I find him very funny, as every parent finds their child. But I watch him just play with no judgment, and I watch him do what I did at my 3-year-old self. Right, I watch him do as I did, and I know that there is going to come a time when he gets further into school where he is going to let that go, where he is going to feel judged. And I know that there will be an evolution, many evolutions of his life where he decides, okay, I'm going to let go of this judgment. And hopefully I can teach him through this lens of improv to live a life filled with joy and yes and. But what it really does is when you allow yourself to give 0 Fs. I'm just going to say that. Okay. I didn't say when you just allow yourself that freedom, that is when your
And
mind, or I didn't say the
wow,
word. I know. I said
you're
Fs.
right. No fucks given.
No, but thank you. Okay. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for saying it for me.
This
But
is
like,
a show for adults.
okay, I know, but I just was filtering it out in case you're on a lunch break and you're listening and you're like your boss is in the other room. I said F's, but Bill said fucks. Okay. So, but here's the thing. It's I definitely I have found more freedom in my life. And that headspace is such a better headspace to walk around in than me 10 years ago. That it's a better mind. It's more freeing, it's more joyful, and there's more room for play and less room for bullshit. And that's really where we're getting real here, Bill, because I'm swearing a lot. It's really where you can find your truest self is when you let go of that judgment and you just be. And that to me is through this improv journey, through the work I do teaching. When you teach, you actually have to process things, right? So I have had to have many failures, going back to F words, many failures to get to the place that I am now where I do feel a sense of peace. Um, but it's through
Let's
this play.
Yeah, let's talk about some of these examples that we're talking all around. I love that we've introduced the F bombs here because there is something about like really being yourself, unreserved. And I was working with a client. I really admired their company, what they did, loved their work in the education space. Big company, worth something to us as a coaching organization. And I remember in like the first session, I think I probably swore a handful of times as I often did, and I'm like F that and F this, and then one of the people on the leaders on the team pointed out, said, "Bill, you've said the F word 7 times before. We're not even at lunch yet. Like you need to tone it down." And I'm like, "Well, I'll try a little bit, but I'm really for you." And in fact, they said, no, you're not for us. Like, your irreverence and your thing is uncomfortable for us. And so I recommended a different coach for them.
Hmm.
And it seems, as I heard very recently, that coach is still working out for them. And
Hey,
that coach does not say fuck every other word like I do. But I'm like, I'm gonna have you win. And I'm not like F you, F that. I'm just like being like all in there dealing with something that's going on in the company, and I am not editing in the way that some polite people do.
yes. And you know what? I love that you said that, and this is what I have to realize myself sometimes. We are some of coaches, leaders, facilitators, we are acquired taste. If I'm not your cup of coffee, go get a cup, or if I'm not your cup of tea, go get a cup of coffee. I butchered that one, but I got to tell you, it's true. It really does. Because somebody might not like me because I'm super extra. Let's look behind me. I have polka dots on my wall that I chose to put there as a 40-year-old woman. Okay. I'm not for everyone, but I've realized that. And it's so smart that you realize that too with that client. And
It's not for everyone. Yeah. Yeah.
no, and you can't be, or you're just going to live a life where you're not pleasing anyone, especially yourself.
So you've done a lot of work with a whole range of companies and organizations. Why don't you tell us about a few of those? In preparation, we took some notes. Let's talk, maybe start first with the American Marketing Association. What does the work look like? What'd you do? Tell us that story.
Yeah. So they were one of our very first clients. We've been in business since 2014. And they took our fundamental, one of our core values at Improve It is to lead with yes and they actually put that into their core values as an association across the US due to the work
Mm,
that we did together.
mm, mm,
You'll go in
mm.
their office, you'll see yes and you'll see on there, it's actually amazing. We go in, we're very close with them. They let us use their office for filming stuff. And so we'll go in and on the doors it says, here's your meeting reminders. Number 1, choose a person who is in charge of yes and. Remember to yes and. They incorporated it into their culture because they believe in the fundamentals so much about, because they're a marketing team. They have to collaborate. They have to have this idea where everybody has a voice, all voices can be heard. So it started off with one workshop. Over the years, we've done many workshops together, and our workshops are 2 hours in length. And we have 10 different offerings that we can choose from. So basically, they'll come to us with a particular need or challenge, an objective, and then we decide, okay, from our list here, our menu of offerings, what is it that we need to focus on? We'll go in and do that work. I don't do all the facilitation. I have 6 lead facilitators, 17 co-facilitators who are all trained improvisers all over the US. And so they've gotten to know so many members of our team. Their chief human resources officer is a dear friend of ours and could not believe more in this work and
Mm,
has really infiltrated that through their culture.
mm.
It's been one of the greatest joys to witness, and it's one of our biggest case studies because it really takes leadership buying in and believing these fundamentals in order for it to work and trickle down.
Yes, and that's a terrible
Yeah.
story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Did I fail, Bill? Did I fail?
I was thinking about how I have seen some people use yes and in a but sort of a way.
Yes. You just know because me while doing yes and. Yeah. Yes. And that is, can I tell you that's an activity we do?
Mhm.
And we have everyone say yes and they're planning a party. Everybody has ideas. You have to share an idea. You have to say yes and to the person before I use idea. And then facilitators will walk around the room, choose a person in the group to say yes, but to this group of yes anders. The energy starts to shift. People start to get uncomfortable because they're like, no, you're supposed to yes and, but they don't know this person was told to yes, but. And then we bring in a no because person. And this is the fun vacuum. The fun vacuum comes in, they squash all the ideas. Yeah. And it's just this energy, the volume of the room gets lower. You can feel tension. And my favorite question to ask is right after we end this exercise, how many of you have been in a meeting like that recently? And almost all hands go up, right? And so it's just the negation really stifles innovation. It stifles momentum. And for American Marketing Association, who is in charge of spreading great ideas to any company that has a marketing department or any type of creative, they have to be a yes-anders or it's never going to work.
Yeah. Yes.
And do you want to know because me, Bill? Am I getting a no because again?
No. I
Okay.
was
Okay.
after Mickey that time, right? For fun.
I liked it. I liked it. And see, here's the fucked up part because I can swear a lot on here. I am so my husband says that I live in this world of unicorns and rainbows because I surround myself with improvisers. We yes and each other, and we don't even say the words yes and. It's just a philosophy. So and this is also how I equate it, which they're the best human beings on this planet. But when we go and travel together, sometimes there's a lot of us, depending on the size of the event, and I'll be the driver and I'll be the person in charge of this whole crew. It's literally like being the driver on the clown car at the circus because everyone is yes and each other so much that it's just bit after bit after bit after bit. And there's no stopping it because there's no. And it's so fun. And that's
Keep
who
building.
Yes. And imagine doing that for your team. Imagine doing that in a brainstorm session. Imagine doing that when you're talking about budgets. Imagine doing that when you're getting ready to get a pitch together for investors. Imagine. And that's where it goes. And you just heighten it. And sometimes you get really pie in the sky ideas, but those pie in the skies can help you find themes. And then you can pull those themes out and really come up with something great.
Yeah, so I think the only thing that's distinct, like if we're just playing and performing and entertaining, then we stay in kind of that yes and space. And I feel like every time we brainstorm or problem solve or explore something, we try to be there as much as possible. And we try to keep playing in that space and avoid the buzzkill argument, debate kind of thing. And then at some point we figure out, okay, where are we most aligned? We look for alignment, and then we work on actually being decisive and picking a particular direction out of all the yes and work, the exploration, the play. And in that moment, right, decisiveness is about killing off things, right? It's the root of suicide, homicide, etc. Right? We actually are then going to kill off some alternatives and pick one and kind of go with it. But that's at the very end after a lot of play and a lot of natural alignment. And we're kind of ready then to pick a direction.
Yeah. And what's great about that is once you've gotten to that place, everybody has shared ideas. Everyone is reaching the collective success together. And then when you actually achieve the goal, it's not one person taking in all the glory. It's a team of people who came up with ideas together, celebrating and motivating and continuing to be inspired to do the next one.
Mm-hmm. So let's share some more stories. Why don't you talk about working with a former presidential foundation?
Yeah. Okay. And I'm not, we're not going to share the name, but it's a big one. And
8-year president, 2 terms, not too long ago, because we know that you were a kid in the 80s.
Yes.
But in the 70s, I went to the same school in Hawaii as this former president.
I love it, Bill. I love it. Well, okay. This is probably, besides American Marketing Association, one of my favorite stories ever because there's a hero in this story and it's not who you think. Spoiler alert. So this all starts, this is 2017 in Chicago. It was the first ever, we'll call it training day. That's what it was called for this foundation, not to be named. And Jenna, a girl on my team who started off as an intern actually the year before, started off as an intern the year before, was going to be a participant in this because we as Improve It were facilitating our team building workshop. We were basically doing a train the trainer. We were training the trainers who were then going to lead 250 people in these exercises at this big event. We were going to be on stage. They were going to be in the audience with smaller teams.
Mhm. Mhm.
So Jenna got to be a participant in this. And Jenna, again, is an intern at Improve It. Let me just preface who Jenna is at the time. Jenna was the shyest person you will ever meet. Jenna was
I've never
so
known any shy Jennas.
yeah, okay, I know. Jenna's the shyest Jenna you'll ever know. Okay, Jenna was, and so she would pick up the phone at our office and would be like, "Hello," like she couldn't even say hi. I'll say this, she was just scared to communicate. This was her first internship in the real world,
Yeah.
so she's in the audience, and part of the day was coming up with a case study or an actual idea that could create positive change in Chicago. So each group, again, yes anded each other to come up with the best ideas. Then they got down to the bottom, just like we talked about. They filtered out the very best one. And guess what? Through this yes and approach, Jenna's idea somehow was chosen by her group. After we did our spiel on stage, rocked the house, everybody was loving it. We had no clue that said former president was going to be there. I should have known, but I didn't. So they took all the facilitators in a back room. We got to meet former president. Then we found out that the former president was going to come out on stage and listen to these pitch ideas. And basically, each person was going to pitch their story to the former president. So Jenna, no pressure. Right. Exactly. Jenna's terrified.
Smooth as they come, right?
Yeah. So then we see literally, Bill, as she's stepping up to the podium and there's people behind her, a sea of media comes in the back. They had blocked this section off, a sea of media. Okay. Scared, shy Jenna is at the microphone with a former president. And I filmed the whole thing. You ever seen Mean Girls with Amy Poehler? Do you know when she's like using her video camera? She's like, I'm a cool mom. That was me in the background watching Jenna's life about to change. She held her own with a former president for, I am not kidding you, it was 20 minutes. I have a 20-minute video on my phone. They riffed back and forth in front of an audience of 250 people and in front of this huge media team. I was so proud of her. She gets off stage and she can't even believe what she just did. I'm talking to her face to face. All of a sudden, news outlet after news outlet after news outlet comes and starts pulling Jenna away to get her soundbite. And I'm sitting there. She's like, this isn't real life. I'm like, I know. And so Jenna, that was 2016, has now evolved. She is the director of client experience at Improve It. She's been with me 6 years. If you ever call into our office, you will talk to Jenna. If you ever book a workshop, you will talk to Jenna. Jenna sells to corporations like Walgreens, Motorola Solutions, Uber Freight, Amazon. She, because of that moment, literally, I said, you are Improve It. I watched her become more confident, trust herself, trust her gut, yes, and herself, and transform her own life. And she is now one of the most confident, amazing professionals that I know. And I told her after that day, I said, if you can't stand here and interview or get interviewed by a former president, you can do anything. And she has.
I love that. I love, in particular, finding yourself suddenly in like this crucible moment, right? And you emerge from the fire, an altered human being, forever seeing yourself in a different way, knowing, like deeply knowing yourself as someone other than how you knew yourself before, and then having access to all that's available like that. Like, oh, I've been through that fire. Well, I could do this. I stood before the media in front of a powerful world leader and like parlayed.
Crush it. And they were riffing. Like he was joking with her and she's from McHenry, Illinois. He's like, oh, I know McHenry. And they had this whole big moment. It was funny. She was so wonderful and just poised and confident. And it truly did transform her. And I will do anything for her. She is Improve It. I tell her all the time, I'm like, this is what this work does. You are Improve It.
Embodies it fully. Yeah, it's a lovely story. And think about the opportunity of creating moments where people have to go right into something. I did a thing a couple of years ago called vocal improv.
Mm.
And, I was saying I hadn't done any improv. I guess I did do that. So vocal improv is not words. Vocal improv is like music. Music with your mouth. I suppose you could slap and clap and things like that. That is unplanned. So we go
Mm.
to this thing, it sounds interesting, fascinating, whatever. Then we started, and this woman with like a background in jazz and other kinds of things, sort of scat sings a whole groovy thing that she just makes up on the spot with some other people who've been there for a while. And she's like, okay, now we're going to begin. And I'm going to start this off, and then he's going to add something in, and then I want you to do this, and then they get to me, and they're like, okay, and then you're going to do like whatever, you're going to solo, or you're going to fill in a thing, and it's not words, you're just making sounds, right? Like
Yeah.
rhythms or melodies or contrast or like whatever. And I'm there with a group of young people, a lot of them women, and some of them fairly attractive. Now I have to make an ass out of myself or sound awkward, not cool, in front of attractive people. And I remember thinking, I would rather just take my clothes off right now as a middle-aged
Mm-hmm.
man
Mm-hmm.
and do what I'm supposed to do.
Bill?
That's preferable to me. And so I like did this. It was a really uncomfortable day. Like the whole day was really uncomfortable, continually. And then at the end of the day, I did notice I'm like freed up, and I was much looser with my self-expression. And I don't start as a very inhibited person.
Yeah. So I'm so here for this. And I gotta tell you, like, that is what improv does. And I know it wasn't actual words, but you're still using the same muscle, right?
Like,
Yeah, I was gonna ask for an example. I'm so glad you gave that to me.
You might like do a thing like that, or you might like, and then like you're just gonna pick a sound and make it up
Yeah.
and go with that, and you're jiving off what everybody else is saying. So like they do a thing, and you're like, oh, and then you change what you're gonna do in the moment, and you like,
Yes. No, and we do activities like that in our workshops. In any improv class you go to, there's something called human machine. It's very similar. And it's one person goes out and you have to make a noise and you have to make a motion. Okay. And then somebody else comes.
emotion. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they add to it and they add to it, and people come and bring emotion and chugga, chugga.
Woo, woo.
Hey, hey. Yeah. So no, and it becomes this whole machine. And then you have to name the machine and you're like, what the hell am I doing? But then you're having the best time. And we talk about that as an idea for collaboration is literally, and this is gonna blow your mind. Are you ready? Here it goes. So this is truly, think of it like this. Think of a project, right? One person comes out, they share an idea, they put in their effort. The next person has to yes and that idea because you're collaborating, right? And you have to understand this is this person's idea. I'm not going to jump on top of it. I'm going to add something to it, but it's not going to take away, it's going to add. And so then you all keep adding different elements to that project because those are your strengths. And then collectively, you've created this really fun, vibrant piece of work that everyone is bought into, everyone shares in the collective success too. And it's really, like you said too, for me, when I get home from any workshop, I do keynotes as well, any type of thing where I'm talking about improv or I'm doing improv or a show, which I haven't done a show in a long time. I cannot go to sleep. Like, it's like, especially if I have a late night.
You're wound up. You're like, you have to come down. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember, like, I would do, when I first started Improve It, I would go to work 9 to 5, and then I'd have like an hour for dinner, and then I'd go to class from like 6:30 till 9:30, and then I'd try to like go home and go to bed, and I could not do it. It was so hard because it's just, it works your mind. It's like going to the gym. It works your mind, these muscles in your mind that just turn your brain on to so many different things. You're just so more aware of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about being engaged, giving a talk, connecting with people. If you've done a really good job, if you've ended on a high note, you're like you're just jazzed up. You're still processing it. You're still kind of feeling it for a while, and it takes a while to kind of come down. You need to debrief it. You need to share about it. You need to and it's hard to just be by yourself and okay, I'm going to go back to my hotel now. And
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. Well, and then the flip side of that is like if you bombed, like that sticks with you a long time too,
oh yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
know.
Oh my God, how did I do that? If I could only turn that one
hmm
back. Like, yeah, yeah.
Let me tell you, I had a bomb recently and I didn't know it was a bomb, which is probably like my own ego, like not allowing me to process it as a bomb until I found out later it was a bomb. But I got off the plane and I was like, that was good. And it didn't feel like all the others, right? So I was like, that was good. And then I got then the feedback comes, yeah, and it's not good. It was not my audience either. So this comes back to an acquired taste. This was not the right room for me. This was they don't want polka dots with teal. They don't want teal polka dots. They didn't want this. They did not need me at all. I
Mm,
was not their
mm, mm,
person.
mm, mm, mm,
And I should have never done it. And they should have never hired me. And that's
mm,
okay. Like that's
mm.
something that I know, right? I had to go through that flop to get to, and let me say that sucked. That sat with me a long time, but it makes the better ones, the great ones, which we typically I can literally count on my hand the number of flops because improv really is such a positive space. It creates this positive energy, but when you don't buy into it, it can flop in a heartbeat. And so, um, anyway, I will tell you, I learned more in that moment than any of the other wins that we've already had this year. Like I'm like, okay, great, another good one. It was fun, and that one I'm talking about it, right? It still has stuck with me.
Yeah, there's something to learn from, to incorporate. It could be like making sure you choose something right or change your process or deal with something in a different way. Like there's always a learning to take from it, but it can sting for a while because you had some intention. It was not real.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah. And I will tell you that's so it was, yeah, we won't get more into it, but it can last, but it can also be your greatest teacher and your greatest driver to do better the next time.
Yeah. The key, right, is moving through it, learning from it, incorporating it, using it in some way, not giving up because of it. Like, oh, that
Yes.
well, I'm never going to do that again, right? Which is more like the 12-year-old kind of thing. Like, oh, you asked somebody to dance, and then she laughed and talked to her friends, and then you were humiliated and you're like, I'm never going to ask somebody to dance again as long as I live, unless I already know they want to dance with me, right? Like that kind
Yep.
of trauma. And then at some point you're like, oh my God, how long am I going to carry that one around?
hmm
Sometimes people carry it their whole damn life, right? Like
Mm.
um, a lot of these things and never even notice that they've been carrying the thing, except they turn around.
Oh, yep.
Every
Bill.
job has been going like that. How come every relationship? How come all my family?
Mm, And that leads those unprocessed emotions. This is like a whole self-healing journey that I've been on recently. Those unprocessed emotions can lead and manifest in physical pain. It doesn't just sit there with you. It manifests itself in some way. So I'm a big proponent of processing those failures in real time. And I got a hack for you because this has really served me. Give yourself So the thing I did was an hour and a half long. I gave myself an hour and a half to just feel like a huge pile of shit. Like I gave myself literally,
Aha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lean into the thing. Don't try to suppress it. Move through
yeah,
it. Powerful.
yes. And I mean, I cried, I threw shit. I was like, this sucks, because it was,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that you have to get that out in order, and you
Yeah.
have to own it
Yeah.
in order
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
verify the lessons that you've learned.
Super powerful, right? You're yes-anding the dark. You're
Yeah.
yes-anding the sadness, the grief, the anger, the betrayal. You're yes-anding all of that rather than trying to suppress it. Because if you suppress whatever, your grief, anger, sorrow, sadness, any of it, rage, if you suppress that, you suppress everything. You also suppress your passion, your aliveness, your joy, your exuberance, your all of it. Like, and then you just become another numb person who's, looking for diversion.
Yep.
Yeah. Super, super powerful. We're going to put your link up in just a second. Let me say a couple of shout outs before we run out of time. If you want to drop us a note or get in touch with us, the email is info@scalingcoach.com. You can find all our episodes here, wherever you are, or at scalingcoach.com, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, even, like everywhere. So Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. So like, subscribe, get your notifications, that kind of thing there. Big shout out to my friend and mentor, Vern Harnish, the creator of the whole Scaling Up framework and the original Rockefeller Habits, and to our producer in the background there, getting our shows ready and out the door, Wanda Mitchell, to the people at Podfly who get our show up and ready and sweeten our audio and make our show notes and all that kind of thing every week. So big shout outs to all of them. So let me just then throw up your info on the screen here. LearnToImproveIt.com is where to learn about Erin's programs and what they do and that kind of thing, and see if there's something that could fit you. I think there's such value in our well-being, in our self-expression, in our power and passion as leaders, and the difference we can make in our company and with our teams, giving them freedom to deal with whatever comes up, whether it's a crisis of a global nature or a personal crisis in your world, a breakdown of some kind or another. This idea is so healthy and so valuable, bringing improv to it and play and yes-anding all that life throws at us. So there you go. There's that information. I want to thank everyone for listening. Thank you, Erin, for joining us on the show today. To our listeners and viewers, we'll talk to you again next time. Keep scaling up.